Hey guys, welcome back. It's been a while. I'm not gonna lie, I almost gave up on this channel, but tonight, thanks to Criterion, who's not sponsoring this video, I saw a movie so remarkable, so unbelievable, I felt compelled to sit down, dust off the old equipment, and give my opinion. I have just watched for now the second time David Lynch's masterpiece, Blue Velvet. Now, we're more than a year removed from the passing of legendary American filmmaker David Lynch, who admittedly is not everyone's cup of tea. His movies are famous for these surreal, dream-like images, and David Lynch, famously himself, was very much a dreamer. Plots and scripts would come to him in dreams. And he was a man who loved to both conceptualize on paper and visualize on screen the motion, the flow, and the process of moving through a dream. And most of his films absolutely accomplish this to legendary effect. Now, Blue Velvet, for me, as someone who, again, just for the second time has viewed this, Blue Velvet is what kicked off my love of David Lynch over 10 years ago when I was either 18 or 19 years old. I watched Blue Velvet for the first time on some streaming service. And I remember being blown away by this film to the point where I kind of launched into a David Lynch bender. I watched all of Twin Peaks. And then right as I finished that, Twin Peaks The Return came out. So I got to experience that without any of the wait. Mulholland Drive, Inland Empire, Lost Highway, Eraserhead. So many of these legendary films, which aren't always the easiest movies to digest or swallow. Lynch does not like to give the audience concrete answers. He loves for you, the viewer, to sit there and decipher and decode and to reach your own conclusion. You have films like Mulholland Drive, famous for this. Blue Velvet, while it's a little more straightforward, has many of the pinnacles that made David Lynch who he was. And this was coming off the heels of a commercial and critical bomb with his adaptation of Frank Lynch's Dune. Frank Herbert's Dune, excuse me. And what he's able to accomplish here in Blue Velvet is an extraordinary feat. And I'll start first off with the performances and the cast of this film. It stars a young Kyle MacLachlan, a young Laura Dern. She was 17 when she was first introduced to David Lynch and cast for the film. I believe she was 18 while filming, but don't quote me on that. And her and really Kyle MacLachlan's Jeffrey and Sandy kind of serve as the forward protagonists in this film. Kyle MacLachlan here, though everyone in the film is outshined by the antagonist, Dennis Hopper, and of course you have Isabella Rossellini playing this kind of femme fatale character who draws us into the world. Everything from the performance side is extraordinary. You have Laura Dern bringing this exuberant, bright-eyed kind of innocence and the all-American girl next door named Sandy. You have Kyle MacLachlan as Jeffrey, this curious, somewhat idealistic man who loves a good mystery, and just in the sense of curiosity killed the cat, he really self-inflicts himself into the darkness of this story. And it kicks off with him finding an ear, a severed ear in a field. And from there, the town of Lumberton, which with this great opener is showcased as this idyllic and picturesque postcard of a town, just the true American Pie suburbs that we are all familiar with in our thoughts. As he finds this severed ear, he begins this descent down this rabbit hole, and forgive my on the nose hat, into this world of dark misery and pain. And it's a disturbing film on many levels, with violence against women, these violent type of sexual gratifications taking place, and above all else, Dennis Hopper as Frank in this film, who gives an all-time great performance. I mean, this is legendary stuff from a legendary actor, but his role in this movie is something to behold. I mean, there's many moments where it's almost hard to watch him on screen with some of the antics and the way he takes Lynch's word on the page and delivers them onto the screen. Yet at the same time, it's so captivating, so mesmerizing. You cannot take your eyes off him, even though you want to. And what's interesting about this, with the Criterion Collection 4K that I got, it comes with this little booklet with backstories into the making of the film. And Dennis Hopper himself, when cast for this role, was nearly unbankable. He had a long history of alcohol and drug abuse, and he was a pain in the ass to work with on sets. So he came in with some provisions, and as they point out in the booklet, this was a man who was dedicated and focused in his craft on this movie, even going as far as yelling at people late to production and late to the set, and holding other actors accountable, going back and forth with ideas for the character of Frank with writer director David Lynch. And he was a man who knew he had no leverage. And you can almost feel this man acting with his very livelihood on the line. And he delivers in every single facet. He is an iconic villain. And it's really hard to shake some of these scenes that you find himself in. Now, Kyle MacLachlan himself, who I have touched on briefly, though he is overshone by the scene stealing, the chewing up the screen of Dennis Hopper, I think that this is possibly the best performance of his career as Jeffrey. He has this kind of bright-eyed idealism, but at the same time that there is this darkness that really is shown from curiosity, this lust and this hunger to solve a mystery. And he gets drawn into this whirlwind of a character played by Isabella Rossellini, who is kind of a subject of Dennis Hopper's Frank for, I guess it's a 40-year-old movie at this point, with spoilers, where, her husband and kid are held captive by Frank, and she kind of serves as like she kind of has to do sex acts, but Isabella Rossellini adds this subtext to the character where she actually enjoys it, the violence. It's a very interesting performance, and it's something that, when the film first came out, there's a famous review from Roger Ebert who gave it a 1 out of 4, his lowest rating, calling it a misogynistic, sexist film. He called David Lynch a pig for his portrayal and what he puts Isabella Rossellini through. But as it's well documented, she was absolutely game, and it's um, the legend of David Lynch. He's described in this booklet that comes with the film of having this energy and aura radiating off him. David Lynch had aura, and he had this calming presence on set, and he's so good working with female actors. They all absolutely rave over him, anyone who's ever worked with him. And it's so interesting to me that a man this empathetic and kind and just has this calming presence of him could conceptualize and execute films with such bleak darkness. It's a really good in-look into the mind that he always successfully portrays in his films, some more experimental than others. But Blue Velvet, to me, when you couple that with the direction and the score, and some of these iconic needle drops, some of these iconic set pieces, the gentleman who illuminates his face in the dark room and starts singing In Your Dreams by Roy Orbison, a candy colored clown they call the Sandman, tiptoes to my room every night. That scene is jaw dropping stuff. The scene of Jeffrey towards the end walking into Isabella Rossellini's apartment, and you just see the yellow man sitting there staggered with brain leaking out of his head and another man dead. It's these images that Lynch accomplishes, these almost, the frames and the shots that he has in this film are worthy of framing and hanging on your wall as a portrait. They're works of art. And this film, I think, is a work of art. It's an absolute masterpiece by David Lynch. I think it's the steady direction, some of these awesome transition shots he has when they talk about an ear was severed with scissors, and you cut right to this police line getting cut by a pair of scissors, or Dennis Hopper in the apartment of Ben, the gentleman that sings the Frank Orbison song saying, "We gotta skedaddle." And it's this like vampire-esque transition where they're all just out of the room. It's beautiful stuff. So to me, this is a film that, if you're unfamiliar with David Lynch's work, even over Mulholland Drive, I would say this is probably the film that you should watch first. I know Eraserhead is obviously precedes this film, but that's on a different level of dark and disturbing. I think this is the perfect entry level film, and then I would go to Mulholland Drive after that. These are his two most accessible films, if you could call David Lynch's work accessible. Um, but yeah, this movie yet again has blown me away to the point where I felt compelled to sit down and share my thoughts with you guys. If you're fans of David Lynch, if you miss him like I do, I just wish we could have got one more work from him. But Twin Peaks: The Return was a hell of a send off. Um, this is great stuff. And if you're a collector of films, you don't own the Criterion Blue Velvet, it's in the range of affordable on Amazon and the Criterion site. It's right around $30. There's tons of featurettes. There's over almost an hour of deleted scenes and footage. Um, this is the display and the casing. There's great stuff in here. I think all in all, to me, and my rating is in the comment below, my rating scale, but this to me is without a doubt, no questions asked, transcendent masterpiece. Blue Velvet to me is one of my favorite films of all time. I think it's one of the classics of American cinema, and it really does cement David Lynch's status in so many ways, along with Mulholland Drive, which I could cover in another video, as I have the criterion of that as well. But yeah, those are my thoughts on David Lynch's Blue Velvet. What a film. What a ride. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Are you a fan of this film? What's your thoughts on David Lynch as a whole? If you enjoyed the review, if you enjoyed my opinion, give me a like, give me a subscribe. I will start posting regularly again. We are not quitting just yet. So, as always, guys, I really appreciate you tuning in. This is Jake Margot with Margot Watches Movies. We'll see you next time.